18-year-old Isabella knelt as the lights of Victoria Harbour began to shimmer behind her. Her stance remained proud and willful, but her brows and eyes were full of stubbornness. "Daddy, Albert isn't some poor kid. He promised me that once he becomes the twin flower red stick of the gang branch, he'll come back with me to see you. I don't care. I'm going to marry him. Later, he took over my father's power and, just as he said, really became the all-powerful figure controlling Hong Kong. Everyone said she had a keen eye and was the best investor in all of Hong Kong. Until that night, at the riverbank casino under the neon lights, he held a girl whose brows and eyes closely resembled her at 18. A look of deep, unspoken affection in his eyes. Look how much she resembles you back then, innocent, pure, deserving of all the world's beauty. I couldn't save you back then, but now I've saved her. Isabella. By saving her, I'm saving you." The cruise ship's horn echoed as Isabella leaned against the railing, feeling a chilling unfamiliarity in him that stirred her fear. He had pulled her into his world, but now he was telling her he loved her exactly as she once was. "Daddy, if only I'd listened to you earlier, I should have just made him a dead man." Chapter 1. Hong Kong. St. Mary's Hospital. Miss, according to your test report, you're about 35 days pregnant, but your body has been weakened from years of running the gang branch with third Uncle Chan, and you've had several miscarriages before. If you terminate this pregnancy, you might never be able to have children again. Are you sure you want to do this? Isabella pressed her fingertips to the cold examination table, silent for a long moment, but when she raised her eyes again, all that was left was emptiness. "Yes. Please help me schedule the abortion surgery for 2 weeks from now." The doctor looked at her pale but determined face and couldn't help asking, "Are you sure you don't want to discuss this with third uncle? After all, this is his child too. He's the father and ought to know about it." Discuss? The man who once, beneath the lights of Victoria Harbour, promised her, "When I become a twin flower red stick, I'll proudly marry you," now had his heart and eyes fixed on the child inside another woman's womb. That woman was Monica, who, after her family's bankruptcy left her stranded, was sold into Lan Kwai Fong. It was Albert who saved her and brought her to the underground casino, where she became a new dealer. Look how much she resembles you back then, innocent, pure, deserving of all the world's beauty. I couldn't save you back then, but now I've saved her. Isabella. By saving her, I'm saving you. That's what he told her, but in reality, he did far more than he said. At first, Isabella forced herself to believe he was just holding on to old feelings, trying to make up for not saving her back then, until she saw with her own eyes how Albert slowly went mad, growing distant, all because of Monica. He remembered Monica's birthday, making up for 18 years' worth of gifts at once, from Hermes bags to a luxury flat in Central, even lighting up fireworks over Victoria Harbour all night. But what was forgotten was that day was also the day they sealed their love years ago. The day he said they had to remember for a lifetime. When Monica made her first appearance at the casino, he was not only personally in charge but also waived all the guests' expenses that night, causing a sensation across half of Hong Kong, yet he didn't even remember that at home. Isabella was secretly injecting fertility drugs until she passed out, all to prepare for pregnancy. He showed so much favoritism, she couldn't even recall how many exceptions there really were. Now that Monica was pregnant, she had become the treasured gem in his heart. As his legitimate wife, Isabella probably had no place to stand anymore. Chapter 2. Back at the villa on Victoria Peak, Isabella stood frozen at first glance. In the garden, the white roses and gardenias she had carefully tended were all replaced with jasmine and lily of the valley, Monica's favorites. In the kitchen, her usual bone china teacups had been swapped for pink cartoon ones. The servant cautiously stepped forward and whispered, "Wife, these were all changed at the master's orders. He said Miss Monica is pregnant and hoped seeing these would bring some comfort." Isabella went upstairs without a word. When she pushed open the master bedroom door, she saw Albert directing the servants, hanging a tacky floral and bird painting on the wall, and what was casually tossed into the corner were their wedding photos taken years ago at the foot of the Alps. Seeing the change in her expression, Albert stepped forward, habitually reaching to wrap his arm around her waist. "Isabella, Monica is pregnant, right? The staff dorm is mixed with all kinds of people. I don't feel safe about it. I want to bring her here so she can rest and take care of the baby. But don't worry, Once she's given birth, I'll send her away immediately. I won't let it disrupt our lives. Isabella sneered. So you let her move into the master bedroom? Let her sleep in the bed we've shared for so many years? 3 people in one bed? Albert, you don't mind the tight space, but I mind the mess. Albert's smile slowly faded from his face. Isabella, don't throw a tantrum. My feelings for you have never changed. Back then, I failed to protect you, made you suffer so much following me. Now, when I protect Monica, I'm protecting you from those days. My mom has never accepted you, saying you come from a gang branch and aren't gentle enough. Once Monica has the baby, we'll say it's yours. Because of the child, my mom won't make things difficult for you anymore. That way, you won't have to endure the pain of childbirth. We'll have a child, and it'll ease the family tensions. What's wrong with that? Isabella laughed until tears streamed down her face. How ridiculous. He had shaped her from an innocent, spoiled girl into a woman who could stand on her own, supporting the entire Chan family, the whole casino. Yet now, holding another her, he told her he preferred the way she used to be. He wanted her to use someone else's child to play out a happy family scene, to make up for what he called his reparation. In the corner, the glass of the wedding photos had somehow cracked like a spider web, blurring the faces of her and Albert. Once upon a time, Albert risked his life to cherish Isabella. She knelt before her father, begging him to give Albert a chance. For her, he risked everything, fighting, struggling. Even after being stabbed 18 times and on the brink of death, all he could think was that once this job was done, he'd finally afford the sapphire earrings she loved. But now, another woman had invaded not just her life, but their memories as well. Her gambling skills sharpened, steadying the casino for him, navigating the gang branches, cooking at home, and keeping everything in perfect order, yet none of this gained even a flicker of his attention. He didn't even want their child anymore, just waiting for another woman to give birth to the regret of those years for him. Isabella wiped the tears from the corner of her eye and resolutely went downstairs. Do whatever you want. From today on, I'll live at the casino. This villa, you can let whoever you want live in it. She doesn't want it. Chapter 3. Underground Casino. Isabella had just reached the dressing room door when the whispering inside pierced her ears like needles. Monica actually came to work. She took leave recently, and I thought eldest sister-in-law and third uncle had confronted her and kicked her out. But it turns out she was hiding to get a prenatal checkup. Did you guys see her WeChat moments? The ultrasound images are crystal clear, obviously sent to eldest sister-in-law. I think she's trying to strong-arm her way in. I used to think Isabella, just a dealer, standing beside third uncle looked awkward. Who would have thought the tide would turn? Now a woman from Lan Kwai Fong is riding high above her. I heard she does all her prenatal checkups in the US. With treatment like that, even for the sake of the child, third uncle definitely won't mistreat her from now on. Eldest sister-in-law is probably in for a rough ride. TSK. Who knows? Maybe one day we'll be calling someone eldest sister-in-law. Seeing the conversation spiral out of control, Isabella pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room instantly fell silent. Then everyone scattered. She expressionlessly changed into her dealer uniform, her fingers brushing over the dice that had been her constant companions. These were her most reliable tools. Halfway through tidying up, the manager rushed in. Flustered, eldest sister-in-law. Bad news. Ho Shu brought some friends over to play. Monica was dealing but couldn't even explain the basic rules properly. Ho Shu got angry and refused to let her leave no matter what we said. They're stuck in a standoff right now. In the underground casino, everyone agreed that aside from third Uncle Albert, it was Isabella who held the most authority. Whenever trouble erupted, she was definitely the one to call. Isabella snorted bitterly inside. Monica was pregnant and should be resting at home, not stirring up trouble in the casino. Her intentions were crystal clear, but Isabella was helpless against her. I'll go take a look, she replied in a low voice. Just as she reached the table, she heard Ho Shu's impatient shout. Are you really a dealer? You can't even clearly explain how this game works. And you still have the nerve to stand here? Monica cried with tears streaming like pear blossoms in the rain. So what if you have money? But a dealer has dignity too. Why trample all over me like this? Hey, woman, what are you talking about? Who trampled on you? Ho Shu's friend, hot-tempered as ever, stood up immediately and reached out to grab Monica's arm. Isabella felt a sharp pang in her chest and quickly stepped forward to stop him. "Don't be impulsive." In the chaos, Monica seemed utterly terrified, screaming as she grabbed the small knife used for cutting cards on the table and wildly swung it around. A cold flash flickered. Isabella felt a sharp sting on the back of her hand as blood instantly poured out. At that moment, Albert rushed over hurriedly, with furrowed brows. He sternly scolded his men to drive Hoshu and his group away, then quickly stepped forward, carefully supporting the staggering Monica. Isabella, her face pale from pain, gritted her teeth and shouted to Albert, "Albert, my hand is injured. Take me to the hospital immediately." She was a dealer. Her hands were her lifeline. No accidents could be allowed. But Albert's eyes never left Monica's pale face, not even a sideways glance for her. "Monica is pregnant. I need to get her to the hospital right away." After saying that, he crossed his arms and lifted Monica without looking back, striding away quickly, leaving Isabella standing alone, blood dripping from her fingertips, staining the floor red. Watching Albert disappear at the end of the corridor, Isabella felt her chest tighten as if gripped by something fierce, the pain so sharp she could barely breathe. But maybe this is for the best. Albert didn't even know that inside her belly, a little life was growing. Maybe, never knowing was actually for the best. Wait another half-month, wait until she gets the divorce certificate. Wait until she terminates the pregnancy, then she and Albert will have no reason to be together anymore. "Daddy, I regret it." Chapter 4. Isabella went to the hospital alone to stitch her wound. Since she was pregnant, the emergency doctor didn't use anesthesia on her. The cold needle slid between blood and skin, stirring a continuous, fine, rolling pain. Isabella gritted her teeth, trembling all over, until tears finally fell. In the past, Albert felt heartbroken every time he saw a new wound on her hand. The family's wound medicine was prescribed by the best surgeon from the mainland, a bottle worth a fortune. Albert never hesitated to stock her storage cabinet full, fearing she might run out. But now, her hands were a bloody mess. Albert was holding another woman, fussing over her with tender care. The emergency doctor couldn't help but say, "Miss, the wounds on your hand are very deep. You must take good care of them when you get home, or it could affect your career." Isabella nodded absent-mindedly. Back at home, she saw the servant carrying things from the second floor down to the bedroom on the first floor. Looking closer, it was actually her own clothes and makeup. Albert was gently massaging Monica's calves on the sofa, speaking softly. "How is it? Are your legs still cramping?" Before Monica could answer, she saw Isabella walking over, and she awkwardly stood up. "Eldest sister-in-law." Isabella sneered coldly. "I don't deserve you calling me eldest sister-in-law. Or maybe it's me who should be calling you that." Her sharp retort made Monica tear up immediately. She clutched her belly and winced. "Third uncle, my stomach hurts a little." Albert massaged her belly while telling Isabella to stop. "You know she's pregnant and can't handle any shock. How can you talk to her like that?" Isabella snorted. "Do you expect me to treat her like a queen?" She raised her right hand, wrapped in bandages. "My husband became her man. I'm carrying her child. My career was almost ruined by her. What more do you want from me?" Hearing this, Monica looked at Albert with sorrow. "I didn't mean for what happened today. Third uncle, I told you before, that night was a mistake. I was young and foolish, and in a moment of confusion and passion, I made a reckless choice that has led to the pain the three of us are suffering today." She covered her face. "I should leave. As long as I go, you and sister-in-law will surely be able to reconcile and go back to how you were before. As for the child, once the baby is born, I'll send him to your side. From then on, I won't appear in front of you again. I'll just pretend I never gave birth to this child." But Albert refused to let go. "You are my woman, and you're carrying my child. How could I possibly let you leave?" Their torturous love made Isabella feel like nothing but an extra figure standing nearby. She walked numbly into the bedroom on the first floor to rest. In the early morning, she was suddenly shaken awake, groggy. Isabella saw Albert, his brows etched with exhaustion. "Isabella, Monica's been crying that she's hungry. Make her some late-night food." Chapter 5. Only then did Isabella realize why Albert had moved her from the bedroom upstairs to the one downstairs. The room was nothing special. except that it happened to be nearest to the kitchen. Isabella suppressing her anger. Albert, even if you're bullying someone, there has to be a limit. I've already given my bedroom to Monica, and now you want me to be her nanny? Albert was sighing helplessly as he rubbed his forehead. Isabella, the child in her belly is mine, our future child. That's not my child, Isabella said, her voice breaking with tears. Albert lowered his gaze, stubbornness replacing the tenderness in his eyes. The nanny's cooking isn't as good as yours. Just think of it as doing it for me. Isabella did not reply. She turned over and lay back down, refusing with her actions. She thought Albert would give in and leave. Suddenly, the blanket covering her was jerked away. Isabella was grabbed like a chick by Albert. Her wrist gripped tightly as he roughly dragged her off the bed. Isabella, I don't want to argue with you. Dinner's ready, and I'll let you keep sleeping afterward. Pressed against the kitchen counter by Albert, Isabella finally couldn't hold back her tears. Albert, how can you treat me like this? She had spent 10 years with Albert, facing her parents' objections, the hardships in their careers, hand in hand. They had endured it all. Now, just because another woman was lucky enough to get pregnant before her, she became a discarded pawn in Albert's life. Albert ignored Isabella's sobbing. He grabbed a knife and forcefully pressed it into Isabella's hand. Isabella, listen, cook. He gripped Isabella's hand tightly, forcing her to hold the knife. Isabella's right hand, wrapped in bandages, throbbed with piercing pain under his grip. She choked out, Albert, my hand is injured. Albert paused, a flicker of tenderness in his eyes as he eased his grip slightly. He coaxed her. Isabella, cook. From Chinese to Western dishes, Isabella prepared dozens of plates, even 7 or 8 kinds of desserts. Yet she still couldn't get a single word of approval from Monica. Monica took just a bite of each dish. Some she only sniffed, not even touching the chopsticks. Like this, from midnight all the way to noon the next day, Albert finally let Isabella leave the kitchen, passing the spiral staircase. The utterly exhausted Isabella heard low laughter coming from upstairs. The eldest sister-in-law's cooking is amazing. I just fed the dog what she made, and the dog was so happy. Then came Albert's tender smile. As long as you're happy, don't force yourself if you can't eat. Whenever you want, just have Isabella cook for you. Warm sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, casting mottled patterns on the wall. Isabella felt neither warmth nor pain. She thought of the divorce certificate already in her bag, and suddenly an inexplicable sense of relief rose in her heart. Thankfully, Albert didn't know she had pulled strings to get their divorce approved yet. And thankfully, Albert didn't know about the child's existence either, which gave her a chance to leave without any ties. Chapter 6. When Albert pushed open the door, Isabella was staring blankly at the divorce certificate in her hand. Their eyes met. What are you looking at? Isabella put the divorce certificate back into her bag, feigning calm. Nothing. I just thought of a new scam. The divorce certificate flashed before Albert's eyes. It looked familiar, but no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't recall where he had seen it. Hearing that Isabella had just come up with a new trick, Albert immediately turned his attention elsewhere. Monica has had a poor appetite lately. Try changing things up in the kitchen. Don't shortchange the baby inside her. Isabella hadn't replied when Monica's fair little face appeared at the door. Third uncle, eldest sister-in-law. I've prepared lunch for you. Albert grabbed Isabella and walked out, full of enthusiasm. Passing Monica, he readily let go of Isabella and slipped his arm around Monica's waist. Monica, you're still pregnant. With Isabella here, you don't need to make lunch. Monica folded her hands over her lower abdomen, her expression soft and gentle. Eldest sister-in-law was busy all night. I want to thank her. Isabella walked over to the table and saw 2 sandwiches on a plate, with 2 glasses of orange juice beside them. She didn't even need to taste them to know they were the sandwiches and mixed fruit juice she had put in the fridge for breakfast. Monica told Albert to eat, then pulled Isabella to sit down on the sofa. Eldest sister-in-law, yesterday was all my fault, but I didn't mean it. I'm here to dress your wound. Isabella held out her hand to stop her. No need. Monica gripped her injured hand tightly, tears falling. Isabella, eldest sister-in-law, are you still mad at me? I just wanted to put ointment on you. Albert, fearing they might struggle and Isabella could hurt Monica's belly, quickly held her down. Isabella, let Monica put the ointment on you. Unable to resist his strength, Isabella closed her eyes helplessly. Monica applied a thick layer of ointment on Isabella. Finally feeling satisfied, Isabella felt this ointment wasn't as cooling or pain-relieving as yesterday's. After applying it, the wound throbbed with dull pain. Albert seemed oblivious to her displeasure and pulled her to sit down at the table. It's all Monica's doing. We shouldn't disappoint her good intentions. Isabella had no appetite and was about to refuse when the doorbell suddenly rang. The servant opened the door, ushering in an elegant and dignified lady. Mom, what are you doing here? Albert Chan stood up in surprise. Chan Mama's proud gaze shifted from the downcast eyes of Isabella to Monica behind her, instantly turning from contempt into delight. She pushed Isabella aside and gently placed her hand on Monica's belly. How far along are you? Monica lowered her head shyly. 3 months left until the baby is due. All right, all right, all right, Chan Mama called out repeatedly. Albert, such an important thing, why didn't you tell me? Albert, his eyes glimmered with pride, but his words were humble. Monica is still young, scared the first time she went through this, and since it was still early, she didn't say anything. Chan Mama felt frustrated, wishing he were more sensible. This is such joyous news, how could you not tell me? It's my first time holding a grandchild. She held Monica's hand with a face full of relief, not forgetting to glare at Isabella. You're a lucky one. Unlike some hens that can't lay eggs. Chan Mama never liked Isabella. Although she herself wasn't from a prestigious background, she always hoped her son's other half would be a miss from a noble family, not a dealer who dealt with gamblers every day. Back then, Albert was determined to marry Isabella. Chan Mama couldn't refuse, she couldn't cut ties with her only son. So she reluctantly accepted it, holding her nose. But after marriage, she caused endless trouble, always bringing up Isabella's inability to have a son. Who would have thought that complaint would drag on for 10 years? And yet she still hasn't even seen a grandson. Although Monica's family had also gone bankrupt, she was young, the future was still hers to shape. After the baby was born, they'd send her abroad for university to polish her prospects. Chan Mama helped the shy Monica sit down, her eyes filled with concern. You and Albert are living in the bedroom on the 2nd floor now? Good, good, that room gets plenty of sunlight and has lots of space. You think the flowers and plants take up too much room? No worries. I'll have someone clear them all out soon. The flowers and plants on the 2nd floor were all personally nurtured by Isabella, including basil and rosemary. Isabella wanted to stop them, but her voice was drowned out by the three's excited chatter. Her hand ached fiercely, and her internal organs felt as if they were being sliced back and forth by a knife, bleeding profusely. It turned out that Albert wasn't the only one for her, and her mother-in-law wasn't against having a dealer as her daughter-in-law. After all, from looks to education and achievements, Monica was no match for Isabella in every way. But she was just a little luckier than Isabella. Chapter 7. Chan Mama, what? That dog at home kept you awake? That won't do. I'll take it away in a moment. Isabella's hand hurt so much she let out a low gasp. Because of Chan Mama's hatred for herself, Isabella could imagine what kind of abuse her dog would suffer once taken away. She gritted her teeth through the pain. No. That's my dog. You can't take it away. Chan Mama snorted coldly. What do you mean your dog? This is my family's villa. Everything inside belongs to us, even you belong to my son. Isabella didn't get a chance to argue again before Albert suddenly fixed his gaze on her hand, his eyes narrowing sharply. Isabella, what's wrong with your hand? The wound on her hand burned fiercely, making Isabella breathe more and more rapidly. She lowered her head and saw fresh red blood seeping through the gauze. Her vision flickered between black and white as Isabella collapsed to the ground, helplessly reaching out to Albert with her other uninjured hand. Albert, take me to the hospital, Chan Mama said scornfully. It's just a cut on your hand. Going to the hospital is making a fuss over nothing. She ordered the servant. Help her to the bedroom. Just put some ointment on. The servant unwrapped the bandages, and Chi-Chi was taken aback. The wound was red, swollen, and festering. It was impossible to tell what it had once looked like. By the time the family doctor arrived, Isabella had already passed out from the pain. In a haze, she heard the muffled rumble of thunder outside the window and the low voices of the men inside the room. There was something mixed into the ointment on Isabella's wound that made it worse. Monica's faint sobs blended with the others. It's all my fault. I touched a few cosmetics today. Maybe I didn't wash my hands properly before applying the medicine to her. Isabella, recalling the doctor's warning about her career, somehow found the strength to leap angrily off the bed and lunge at Monica. But Albert was quick to react, pushing her away. Albert, my hand was ruined by her. And you still want to protect her? Seeing Isabella's almost desperate scream, Albert instinctively placed Monica behind him, his tone impatient. Isabella, don't be like this. Monica only accidentally cut you that day. She wasn't aiming for you. What about just now? Isabella accused. She put something else in my ointment. Was that supposed to be an accident too? Monica avoided his gaze guiltily, while Albert stubbornly kept denying it. You heard wrong. The doctor said it's your own constitution that makes the wound slow to heal. It has nothing to do with Monica. Isabella looked at the man she once loved most with disbelief. As he brazenly twisted the truth, Albert seemed a little disgusted by her stare. His throat tightened, and he looked away. You know your own constitution well enough, otherwise. Why haven't we been able to have children all these years? Isabella sat dazed on the ground, tears slipping down without warning. The deepest wound in her heart hadn't been inflicted by Monica, but by Albert. Albert Hans said he could give up everything, even the child. Being Dink wasn't out of the question, as long as Isabella would stay by his side. But the only way to test a promise's truth is time. Isabella's heart felt as if it were being fiercely twisted by a vine, a delayed exhaustion creeping over her. It was as if she had never truly known Albert at all. Chapter 8. The doctor left, and Albert accompanied Monica upstairs to rest. Isabella absently found her suitcase and stuffed a few personal clothes inside. The suitcase was packed, but she didn't know where to go when her father was suddenly killed by enemies, leaving Isabella surrounded by her father's sworn brothers eyeing each other jealously, and an unstable gang branch. The only person she could trust was Albert. Without a word, she entrusted all her father's trusted forces to him, and accompanied Albert as he rose from the lowest-level thug to a gangster boss whose mere stomp could shake the entire Hong Kong underworld. But now, she didn't even have an escape. The villa was eerily silent. Thinking back to what Chan Mama had just said, Isabella's heart suddenly dropped. She dashed up to the second floor. Albert, where's my dog? Albert was feeding Monica some warm water. Monica whispered, Auntie just took him away. Isabella grabbed Albert's arm frantically. How could you let your mother take my dog away? Monica said cautiously. Auntie said she has a friend who likes eating dog meat. Hearing the words dog meat, Isabella's lips trembled, but she couldn't say a word. She slapped Monica hard across the face. Monica screamed, desperately trying to hide behind Albert. A shattered Isabella was pulled up by Albert. He, who had been silent all this time, suddenly raised his hand and slapped Isabella hard. It's just a dog. You never stop, do you? Albert's angry voice, mixed with the rain tapping on the window, sounded like lashes striking sharply against Isabella's heart. He didn't like Isabella pulling out old memories one by one, as if she was so sentimental while he was nothing but ungrateful. Monica already said she's afraid of dogs. Isn't it better that my mother took the dog away? It's just a dog. Can it be more important than the baby in her belly? Can you just be a little more reasonable? That slap left Isabella's head ringing. Through the ringing in her ears, Isabella suddenly recalled how, when Chan Mama made things difficult for her, Tang Yuan would lick her cheek gently with his warm little tongue, making her smile. Isabella covered her face, utterly lost. It was the first time Albert had laid hands on her, and all because of another woman. Monica's tears soaked her eyelashes. Clutching her belly, she gasped for air, breaking Albert's heart. When he turned to look at Isabella, his tone hardened immediately. I'll say this one last time, the child in her womb is important. You can't have the baby, someone has to carry a child for me. As she went downstairs, Isabella's vision blurred like mist, and deafening thunder roared in her ears. A sharp sting in her hand pulled Isabella back to herself. She grabbed her coat and car keys, ready to drive to the hospital. Unexpectedly, in the garage, she ran into Albert holding Monica. Albert froze for a moment when he saw Isabella. Where are you going? Isabella replied, expressionless. To the hospital. Albert's gaze briefly settled on her right hand, tightly wrapped in bandages. Because of that slap from you, Monica seems to have a threatened miscarriage. She needs to go to the hospital too. You should come with her. Not sure she could drive properly with her hand. Isabella silently sat in the back seat. The front passenger seat was no longer hers. And Monica, with her big belly, wanted to sit somewhere more spacious. So, the two women sat together in the back seat. Chapter 9. The Villa. Nestled deep in the mountains under a veil of mist and endless rain, Albert drove at breakneck speed. Monica, hold on a little longer. We'll be at the hospital soon. Isabella turned her face away, as if she was oblivious to everything. Albert kept driving while watching Monica's movements in the back seat. Just as he glanced sideways, a sports car took a sharp turn and came speeding straight at them. In the blink of an eye, Albert jerked the steering wheel violently. He made Monica swerve away from danger, but caused Isabella to smash hard on that side into the oncoming lane. Isabella's internal organs churned like a raging river. Under the brutal impact, she was tossed out through the shattered car window. The car accident scene was utter chaos. The cool scent of rain mingled with the cold bite of gasoline and metal. Isabella was soaked in blood, lying face down on the cold ground in the distance, watching Albert and the driver of the opposite car desperately pull Monica from the wreckage. "Sir, I'm going to save the miss over there." The driver on the opposite side was just about to run toward Isabella, but Albert held him back. "My wife is pregnant. Save her first." The man's car wasn't badly damaged. The two lifted Monica into the car and sped toward the hospital. Cold rain fell from the sky, stinging Isabella's cheeks sharply. "Help me!" The faint cries for help vanished into the wind and rain, dissolving into the misty mountains. Isabella lay unconscious on the ground, feeling her warmth and life slowly slipping away. She regretted it, regretted making Albert the only pillar of her life after her father died. Albert might no longer love her, but though the feelings were gone, loyalty still remained. Who would have thought all those years of loyalty were just fleeting smoke in Albert's eyes? In the moment before losing consciousness, Isabella couldn't remember when exactly she had fallen in love with Albert. Chapter 10. When she woke up again, Isabella saw the emergency doctor once more. "Doctor, is my hand okay?" The doctor was adjusting her foredrip, and upon hearing her, the eyes above the mask revealed a trace of helplessness. "I told you before, you have to take good care of your hand." He sighed deeply at that. "Your wound was treated with some irritating substance, so it was already inflamed and swollen. On top of that, the impact from this car accident caused bone displacement. It's going to be very difficult to heal properly." Isabella stared at him in a daze. Then, after a long moment, curled into the blanket, trembling as she cried. The doctor, unsure how to comfort her, quietly said, "But it's not all bad news. You're lucky, the fetus inside you was unharmed in this car accident." He's an emergency doctor and doesn't know that Isabella didn't intend to keep the child. Isabella rested her hand on her lower belly, where a little life she shared with Albert was growing, but this was no longer what Isabella wanted. If she could choose, she'd rather have her original, intact right hand. She still wanted to chase her dreams, even if Albert wasn't by her side. The nurse turned on the TV for her, hoping to take her mind off things. The doctor said, "Watch some variety shows, cheering yourself up will help you recover faster." Isabella didn't want to reject his kindness, so she looked up. "Is the screen broken? Why is everything so blurry?" Isabella asked, puzzled. The nurse looked up in confusion. "No, the hospital just installed new displays. They're Ultra HD for seeing people clearly." A lightning bolt seemed to strike straight down from Isabella's forehead. She hurriedly changed the channel, only to realize that every color looked blurry to her, like there was a foggy filter over her eyes. Her vision was failing. Isabella helplessly grabbed the doctor's hand, her words tumbling out incoherently. I see everything blurred." No way. "I'm a dealer." The doctor hurriedly arranged for her to have another examination. "It's probably because the impact from the car accident affected your nerves. Your eyesight has temporarily worsened a lot." Isabella opened her mouth, fighting back tears. How long will it take to get better? Maybe a day or two. Maybe many years. Or maybe. The doctor didn't go on, but Isabella caught the meaning between the lines. Maybe she'd never recover. Who was she supposed to blame? "Is it strange, Monica, that you didn't kick him out early when he showed up?" Or is it strange that in that split second between life and death, Albert abandoned her and chose to stand by Monica's side? In that moment, Isabella felt as if she had grasped a lifeline. She grabbed the doctor urgently and asked, "Before I was admitted, was there also a miss who had a car accident? Was she accompanied by a man around 30? The doctor nodded. "Yes. They're staying in the VIP ward on the top floor." Isabella stumbled all the way up to the hospital's top floor and finally found Albert smoking outside the VIP ward. "Albert, I know you can find the best doctor. Please help me, my hand is injured, and my vision is blurring." Albert carried a scent that mixed tobacco smoke with an unfamiliar perfume, making Isabella dizzy and disoriented. But this was her last lifeline. She wasn't ready to let go. Albert frowned barely perceptibly. "What's wrong with your eyes?" Isabella's lips trembled as she repeated the doctor's words to Albert, not noticing how tightly his brows were knitting. Her hand was injured, and even her eyes weren't working properly. What casino would want a dealer like her? Moreover, as a woman, she couldn't even have children. The Isabella from before was bright and resolute, coming up with new card tricks to win clients for him whenever his rivals put him down, handling every crisis smoothly so he had no worries. She loved him, forgave him, even indulged him. Albert didn't want to see this pale-faced, disheveled, hysterical woman before him. This wasn't the Isabella he remembered liking. Albert didn't even have the patience to listen to Isabella finish speaking because he heard Monica's cries of pain coming from the hospital ward. "Third uncle, where are you?" "I'm here." Albert pulled away from Isabella's hand. "We'll talk later. I need to check on Monica first." Chapter 11. That night, once the door to Monica's hospital ward closed, it never opened again. Albert didn't come out for a long time. Isabella waited from evening until dawn, finally unable to resist quietly slipping the door open just a crack. She saw Albert holding Monica close, kissing her deeply, his fingers tangled in her ebony hair. "Third uncle, no, you have to be careful with the baby." Albert's hoarse voice whispered low, "You little devil, you knew it was wrong. Yet you still tempted me." Monica lowered her eyes like a child who had done something wrong. "Third uncle, why don't you go check on eldest sister-in-law? I'll stay here quietly with the baby and wait for you." Albert held her tight, as if addicted, refusing to let go. "Don't worry. She's always strong. Nothing will happen to her. I'll visit her a bit later. Right now, I'm only focused on you." Those sweet words were sharper than the shards from the car accident, tearing Isabella apart outside the door. Early in the morning, when Albert walked out of the hospital room, he finally saw Isabella sitting in the corridor, her eyes already numb and lifeless. He frowned. "Why are you still here?" Isabella lifted her gaze to look at him, her eyes calm and without a ripple. "Albert, I won't stop Monica from giving birth to the child anymore, and I won't stop you from keeping her by your side. I have only one request. Please help me find the best doctor to heal my hands and my eyes." Albert had already grown used to Isabella arguing with him every few days over Monica and the child in her belly. Suddenly seeing her compromised to this extent, a strange desire inside him was satisfied, and his mood inexplicably lifted. Sure enough, Isabella was just a woman after all. When things got tough, she could only quietly come to him. She couldn't live without him. She wasn't all-powerful either. "All right. Then take good care of her. I'll help you find a doctor." The nurse in Monica's ward was sent away, and Isabella became her exclusive servant. Isabella had nothing to say about it. As long as her hands and eyes could be healed, she didn't care about this humiliation for now. Monica felt deeply apologetic. "Eldest sister-in-law, third uncle just cares too much about the baby in my belly and doesn't trust anyone else. That's why he asked you to watch over me personally. Please don't take it the wrong way. Could you help me prepare a basin of foot-soaking water?" Isabella quietly went to fetch a basin of water. In the middle of the night, just as she was about to fall asleep on the chair, Monica woke her. "Eldest sister-in-law, I'm a bit hungry. It must be the baby wanting something to eat. The food in the hospital is bad. Can you go home and cook for me?" Isabella had no choice but to go back and cook. By the time she returned to the hospital after cooking, Albert looked at her with obvious displeasure. "Didn't I tell you to stay and look after Monica? Why did you leave? Don't forget, you were the one who begged me to find a doctor for you." Isabella shook the insulated bag helplessly in her hand. She needed to eat. So I had to go home and cook. Albert wouldn't accept her excuse. You usually cook quickly, why did it take so long this time? Can you stop picking on her? Don't forget. You begged me to find a doctor. He seemed to have long since pushed aside the wounds on Isabella's hand, grabbed the thermal bag from her hand, and stormed into the hospital ward. Isabella was sleepy, so she went to the corridor bathroom and splashed some water on her face. When she came out, she overheard the nurses laughing mockingly. Have you heard? This Isabella, who's always bustling around serving tea, pouring water, making soup, and cooking, is actually third uncle's legitimate wife. What? So the one lying in the ward, heavily pregnant, is the mistress? About time, letting the wife take care of the mistress. Now that's something you don't see every day. Ha, she's the one who's happy with it. So what do others' opinions matter? Acting like the main wife owns the place. It's really embarrassing. After leaving the bathroom, Isabella was just about to go downstairs back to her hospital ward when Monica's ward door suddenly slammed open. Isabella, get in here right now. Isabella was startled, not knowing what she had done wrong. She swallowed hard and quietly stepped inside. The moment she entered the ward, Albert grabbed her roughly. Isabella remembered Albert's slap across her face and instinctively raised her hand to shield herself. Albert seemed momentarily stunned. The brief look of pity in his eyes felt like nothing more than Isabella's illusion. The door slammed shut hard behind Isabella, and Albert's gaze was icy cold, as if he was ready to tear her apart at any moment. You're pregnant. Whose damn child is it? Chapter 12. Isabella stared at him wide-eyed in disbelief. For a moment, she was lost for words. She didn't know where Albert had heard the news, nor how to explain to him why she kept the child's existence a secret. Albert grasped Isabella's injured right hand, causing her to flinch in pain. She choked on her sobs. You and Monica already have a child. Would you even care about the one growing inside me? If I have this baby, how do I explain to him that his father has another wife and other children? You're talking nonsense. Albert snapped. You know just how much I've wanted a child of my own. You had one and didn't tell me. You're clearly hiding something. This child isn't mine. Is it? Monica stood nearby, gently coaxing. Eldest sister-in-law. When I went for an obstetric checkup, I accidentally found your report. You must have gotten pregnant within these last 2 months. But during these 2 months, third uncle has been with me. Could it be that you accidentally slept with someone after getting drunk? If you tell the truth, third uncle will forgive you. That night, it was indeed drunkenness, but it wasn't Isabella who was drunk. It was Albert. After getting drunk, he mistook Isabella for Monica. Isabella still remembered the kiss, heavy with alcohol on her neck, while he murmured Monica's name. It was around that moment that Isabella realized Albert's heart could never go back to how it once was. Later, when the child came, she never even thought about keeping it. Isabella held back her tears and looked at Albert, steadying herself. It's your child. That night, after you got drunk and the driver took you back to the villa, you were with me. But Albert simply refused to believe it. But I didn't see you the next morning, Isabella argued. That's because the next morning a guest was causing a scene at the casino. I went there early to deal with it. Monica let out a barely audible sigh. How could it be such a coincidence? There are so many men in the kitchen. They must have bullied you, right? Isabella, be honest. Third uncle will help you get justice. With every word she spoke, Albert's anger grew stronger. Jealousy and rage completely clouded his mind. If it's not my child, then get rid of it. He grabbed Isabella's hand and dragged her to the maternity ward. Isabella struggled desperately against him but couldn't break free. She did want to terminate the pregnancy, but never imagined the father would force her into it. She did nothing wrong, so why is she carrying such a terrible reputation? Albert, this is your child, you'll regret it. Albert didn't take those words seriously. He ordered someone to tie Isabella to the operating table, coaxing her to abort the child. His voice was like a demon whispering, Isabella, be good. Since you can get pregnant, it means you can still have children. After you lose this one, we'll have our own. No, she and he would never have children again. Chapter 13. When she woke again, Isabella's lower abdomen was throbbing with pain. The man nearby hadn't realized her anesthesia had worn off. He was shamelessly chatting on the phone with a friend. Albert, did you really make Isabella abort that child? Was the kid even yours? Albert's tone was casual. I don't know, but since it's not 100% certain the child is mine, better not to have it at all. Besides, there's still Monica's baby. Besides, Isabella's not having an abortion for the first time. If she's been through so many and can still get pregnant again, it means she can do it again later. Isabella closed her eyes and lay on the bed, a chill running down her spine. True. The person on the other end laughed. Congrats to Albert for enjoying the blessings of having many wives. Albert let out a light chuckle, his tone tinged with self-satisfaction. I plan to take Monica to Hawaii to rest and care for the baby. The sunshine there is warm. The child will like it. As for Isabella, she'll stay behind to recuperate quietly, amid the congratulatory voices of friends. Albert hung up the phone. Isabella, lying in bed with her eyes closed, heard the sound of leather shoes stop beside her bedside. Her hand hidden under the blanket clenched involuntarily, and she tried to slow her breathing as much as possible. Seeing that she didn't react much, Albert found it rather boring and turned to walk out of the hospital ward. As the sound of leather shoes gradually faded away, Isabella's tears finally slid down the corners of her eyes into her temple hair. If one day, Albert realizes he killed his own flesh and blood, would he regret it? Isabella couldn't say for sure. After all, she no longer recognized the completely changed Albert. The next day, 2 patients at the hospital completed their discharge procedures one after the other. In the morning, the distinguished patient in the penthouse hospital ward flew to Hawaii on a private plane. In the afternoon, Isabella wrapped herself tightly in a coat and headed to the airport. The airplane above traced a beautiful contrail across the sky. A friend sent her a screenshot. It was Monica's WeChat moments. In the photo, the man's slender fingers wrapped around the woman's delicate hand, leaving one large and one small handprint on the sand. The caption read, "Waiting for your arrival." Isabella turned off her mobile phone and threw it straight into the trash can. She wrapped the blanket tightly around herself as the crew carefully pushed her onto the airplane in a wheelchair. The passing of one life is accompanied by the beginning of another. Isabella knew she was on the verge of rebirth. From the ruins, new roses will eventually bloom. Chapter 1-4. Under Hawaii's blazing sun, Albert laid back comfortably in his beach chair. Not far off, Monica smiled brightly on the sand as the photographer captured her maternity photos. Albert toyed with his mobile phone, feeling utterly bored. He had been gone for 2 weeks, and Isabella hadn't sent a single message or called once. Had his Cold War with Isabella ever lasted this long before? He clicked his tongue and called his assistant. Has the wife contacted you recently? Assistant, nothing. What about the hospital? The assistant still shook his head. Nothing. The hospital hasn't contacted us either. Albert thought for a moment. If the wife makes any requests, try to fulfill them. But if it's to contact me, then you must tell me immediately. No, not a day late. He couldn't let Isabella taste the sweetness too quickly. Otherwise, she wouldn't learn her lesson. Before hanging up, Albert suddenly remembered something. Find the best surgeon and neurologist, and contact me as soon as possible. After the call ended, Albert's fingers unconsciously rubbed the case of his mobile phone. There was a mighty snow leopard on that mobile phone case. It seemed that during last year's Lunar New Year, he and Isabella switched to matching couples designs. Isabella's was an adorable little snow fox. His fingers tapped absent-mindedly on the mobile phone case, as if pointing at Isabella's forehead, scolding her for being naughty. Honestly, why do you have to make a fuss with me? Look, even if you don't cause trouble, I'll still give you whatever you want, won't I? It's just a child. Nothing worth getting angry about. The child will belong to them eventually, as will the money. Even if Monica takes some, it's only a small portion. My thoughts were suddenly interrupted by the smiling face before me. Third uncle, let's take a photo together. Monica pulled Albert in front of the camera, snuggling up to him with a warm smile. She couldn't wait to capture every little moment with Albert to prove that, in his heart, she was someone who could rival Isabella. Albert didn't care much for taking couple photos. Before, he and Isabella had taken photos too, but because his mother disliked Isabella, those pictures only hung in their villa and were never shown to anyone else. But to avoid upsetting Monica and the baby in her belly, Albert reluctantly went along with taking a set of photos with her. Back at the hotel that night, Albert went to shower, while Monica sat absent-mindedly by the floor-to-ceiling window. For some reason, ever since arriving in Hawaii, Albert had seemed distracted these past few days. He methodically handled the hotel's affairs remotely, made time to play with her when he could, and even told stories to the baby in her belly before they slept. But Monica could feel that half of Albert's attention wasn't really here. She shivered for no reason. Could it be that Albert still has feelings for Isabella? No, that's impossible. Isabella no longer has a child, and Albert has long grown tired of her endless nagging and jealousy. Monica knew perfectly well she couldn't let Albert keep thinking about Isabella, or one day, she'd be doomed beyond redemption. Lost in thought, Monica's mobile phone suddenly rang, from an unknown number. Instinctively, Monica swiped open the mobile phone, and a man's husky voice came through. "Monica, how's the baby?" Monica snapped back to reality in an instant. She hurriedly grabbed the mobile phone and stepped quickly into the corner, lowering her voice. "It's so late. Why are you still calling?" The man laughed carelessly. "Of course, it's because I miss you, and our baby." Chapter 15. Monica steadied herself, her tone teasing. "Even if you miss me, you can't be calling at this hour. You know full well." Click, the bathroom door opened. "Monica, bring me a towel." Monica quickly hung up the phone, switched it off, grabbed a towel, and hurried over. Albert casually wiped his messy, damp hair, his defined abs shimmering with a subtle glow under the lights. "Who are you talking to on the phone?" Monica's heart skipped a beat as she forced out a gentle smile. "I just booked tomorrow's beauty treatment at the hotel." Albert reached out a finger to gently stroke her lower belly. "You're carrying the baby now. If you can skip those beauty treatments, better not do them." Although she knew Albert cared about the baby more than himself, when Monica actually heard those words, an uncontrollable wave of sadness welled up in her heart. "All right, I'll trust you then." "I won't do it," she said obediently. Albert pinched her cheek with satisfaction. He tossed the towel aside, one hand slipping under the hem of Monica's nightdress, the other wrapping around her waist, his warm breath brushing Monica's neck. Monica's body immediately went limp. "By now, the baby should be stable, right?" The man's husky voice whispered in her ear. Monica's ears flushed, a blush spreading from her earlobes down to her neck. She whimpered softly and turned to rest against him. Albert grabbed Monica in one swift move, dragged her into the bedroom, and pinned her down on the rose-colored bed. After the car crash and the long trip from north to south, Monica was actually feeling quite unwell, but she was afraid Albert's attention wasn't on her. So no matter how sick she felt, she kept trying in every way to hold on to him. In the middle of the night, Monica woke up groggy, her chest burning painfully, nausea rising relentlessly in her stomach. She rolled over, only to find the bed beside her empty. She slipped quietly out of bed, and just as she reached the bedroom door, she heard Albert on the phone. "Isabella still hasn't contacted you?" "In a couple of days. Go to the hospital to see her. Bring some of her favorite foods. And also that set of jewelry I took photos of but haven't had time to give to Monica before. Give it all to her." Pausing for a moment, Albert sighed. "Forget it. She doesn't like jadeite. Go take photos of a sapphire set for her instead." The assistant quickly agreed, then comforted him. "Third uncle, your wife has been with you all these years. Half her heart belongs to you, and the other half to our casino. How could she bear to leave? Even if she's angry now, it'll pass soon." Albert's brow finally softened, a faint smile playing at the corners of his lips. Everyone knew Isabella was inseparable from him. Albert had never considered pushing her out of his sight. The cold shoulder was just a small punishment, meant to make Isabella understand there had to be a limit to unreasonable tantrums. Once back in Hong Kong, Isabella would still be his only wife, and he would give her whatever she wanted, including the child in Monica's womb. Thinking this over, Albert reminded his assistant, "Have you arranged the account and deposits I asked for? And the villa, just put Monica's name on it. Once she gives birth, it'll be hers." Inside the bedroom, Monica's mind had never been this sharp. In a moment, she realized these things weren't a surprise from Albert, but a parting gift. It turned out Albert truly only wanted this child. Monica clutched her belly, tears falling quietly. No. No way, she had barely pushed Isabella out. And yet she was plotting to frame her, making Albert believe the child in Isabella's womb was some bastard. She had done so much, and if she still couldn't take the eldest sister-in-law's place, wouldn't she be sewing a wedding dress for someone else? Sharp pains kept stabbing inside her abdomen. Monica knelt down in agony. She finally couldn't hold back and said, "Third uncle, my stomach hurts so much." Chapter 16. Monica was admitted to the hospital late at night. Fortunately, it was only because the fetus was slightly disturbed due to intimate matters. The child was still safe and sound. In the hospital ward, Albert and the doctor carefully checked each of Monica's vital signs, seeing how much he cared about the child in her belly. Monica blurredly recalled the midnight phone call. Maybe she had misunderstood him. Maybe he didn't just love the child in her womb. Monica began sobbing softly, testing the man before her. "Third uncle, do you not want me anymore?" Albert suddenly looked up, then wore a concerned yet helpless smile. "You fool. What are you thinking? You're the mother of my child. How could I ever abandon you?" Monica buried her head in his arms, crying so hard she was gasping for breath. "I heard you've had someone prepare an account and a house for me after I give birth. Do you plan to just use these to brush me off? You clearly promised you'd always keep me by your side." Albert never expected she heard the phone call between him and the assistant. His smile froze for a moment, his tone growing even softer. "You're overthinking it. That's just a gift for you. I didn't expect you'd find out early." Hearing him confirm with his own voice that it wasn't a breakup gift, Monica finally let out a sigh of relief. Some secrets she'd never let Albert know, like what she once did to Isabella, and who the real father of this child truly was. She was still young anyway. Once she married Albert, she would definitely have a child that truly belonged to both of them. Yeah, she's definitely going to marry Albert. She's had enough of the misery after the family went bankrupt. Sometimes not even having enough to eat. Being with Albert is her chance to climb back into high society, and she doesn't want to, and can't, let go of that. The days waiting in the hospital were unbearably dull, so Albert called his close buddy to vent. "Monica found out I was preparing a breakup settlement for her, freaked out, and got stomach pains that sent her to the hospital." The voice on the other end suddenly grew serious. "How's she doing now?" Albert brushed it off casually. "Nothing serious. She's resting here in the best hospital, keeping the baby safe." The person on the other end seemed to relax and advised, "Since you're enjoying family blessings, you have to treat everyone fairly. She's at least carrying the child. You can't show favoritism." Albert dismissed it with disdain. "Fair treatment? That's just balancing power," Isabella said sharply. "I'll just keep my distance from her, give her a slap and a sweet date afterward. But in the end, she's still the one begging me to find a doctor for her." As for Monica, she really doesn't compare to Isabella. It's just that her belly is more promising. How much she stands to gain from here on depends on how sharp she is. The mobile phone suddenly vibrated. Albert glanced at the screen and saw it was his assistant calling. A sudden intuition hit him. He said goodbye to his brother and immediately answered the assistant's call. "Has Isabella been trying to contact you?" The assistant's voice wavered a little. "Third uncle, I couldn't find the wife. When I went to the hospital to see her, I found she had already completed the discharge procedures, and I couldn't get through to her on the phone." Albert's heart sank sharply. "What did you say?" Chapter 17. In the hospital corridor, a restless Albert paced like a beast trapped in a cage. "Let's first go back to the villa and see if she's at home. She spends most of her time at the casino and doesn't have many friends. If she's not at home, then ask her colleagues at the casino who are close to her." At that moment, Albert suddenly remembered the chat records Monica showed him before forcing Isabella to have the abortion. Several people at the casino said Isabella had ambiguous relations with 2 other male dealers and the casino manager. Albert gritted his teeth. If he found out Isabella was really involved with someone else, he would tear that person to pieces. After hanging up, Albert ran his fingers through his stray forehead hairs, his mind restless as hell. "Discharging from the hospital without so much as a word to me. Isabella really is becoming more and more reckless. Doesn't she know I'd be worried? Or is she angry because I forced her to have an abortion? But I can't be blamed for that. Isabella had no way to prove the child was his. He can't exactly put a green hat on himself. Can he? Women are so stubborn to the very end." The laughter and chatter from inside snapped Albert out of his thoughts. It was Monica on the phone with her best friend. In just over 2 months, the baby will be born. When that happens, I'll book you a private flight so you can come see the child. When are you going to have the wedding? She paused for a moment, pretending to be casual. That still has to be discussed with third uncle. Seeing Albert push open the door, Monica immediately hung up the phone, laughing softly as she wrapped her arms around his waist. Third uncle, can you promise me something? Go ahead, Monica said cautiously. Third uncle, all my friends know I'm having a baby. They keep asking me when the wedding will be. Albert smirked. And what did you say to them? Monica with eyes full of innocence. Third uncle, I won't have any improper thoughts. I'll do whatever you say, and I'll always stand obediently by your side. After acting cute, she suddenly shifted her tone. But could you come with me to take just one wedding photo? Just one, so that if the child asks later, at least we won't have to say his father and mother never got married. Monica's scheming was pretty clever. Yesterday she pushed Isabella aside. Today she could take wedding photos. Tomorrow they could book the banquet hall. And maybe soon after, get the marriage certificate. You have to fight the battle bit by bit. Albert didn't take it to heart. Just don't go spreading those photos around after taking them. Monica nodded happily. Okay. Seeing Monica extremely excited, searching online for wedding dresses, Albert had a sudden idea and thought of Isabella's social media account. He immediately sent her a private message. But the message sank like a stone into the sea. Without any reply, Albert comforted himself. As a star dealer, Isabella's account had countless fans. Her inbox must be overflowing. So naturally she'd take a while to notice his message. He was completely unaware that Isabella had already seen those 2 messages. When the message arrived, Isabella was inside a hospital in Germany, her ears filled with the foreign sounds of an unfamiliar language. A young man wearing a mask hurried over. You'll be able to enter the consultation room soon. Isabella smiled and nodded, putting away her mobile phone. Seeing that Isabella was no longer as relaxed as before, the man quickly tried to comfort her. This professor is a close friend of my teacher, a world-class neurologist. With him here, your vision will definitely recover. Today, we'll see this doctor first. Tomorrow, I'll take you to meet another surgical professor who will treat your hand injury. Isabella put away her mobile phone, a rare bright smile lighting up her eyes. All right, I'll listen to you. Chapter 18. Albert had been eating poorly and struggling to sleep lately, and with it, his attention to Monica and the child in her womb had noticeably lessened. Third uncle, the servant at the villa, said that since the wife was hospitalized, she hasn't returned home, and no one at the casino has seen her. The wife isn't close with her colleagues, so no one knows where she went. Just like Albert said, Isabella's past days revolved solely around him and the casino. She had no family, no friends, her world contained only Albert. Albert clicked his tongue, silently cursing his useless subordinates. Maybe he should have gone back to find her himself. Isabella must be hiding somewhere, watching his every move. If he sincerely went back to her, Isabella would surely change her mind. Albert started thinking about going back. Monica excitedly held up a wedding photo album and showed it to him. Third uncle, look at this wedding dress, isn't it beautiful? And this suit, you'd look so handsome in it. Let's just wear these for the shoot, okay? Albert said disinterestedly. I'm busy. You film it yourself. Glancing at Albert's mobile phone, Monica noticed he was searching for flights back to Hong Kong, and her expression instantly changed. You're going back? Didn't you say you'd stay here with me during the pregnancy? Albert said coldly. The child's coming out of your belly. Doesn't need me. So why do you have to keep me here? Monica was momentarily speechless. Feeling Albert's attitude toward her had grown colder lately. When they first arrived in Hawaii, he treated her so attentively. Albert had already gotten up to grab the suitcase. Monica rushed into the bedroom, blocking him. Where are you going? You can't leave. Used to it. Monica's once gentle little gestures now seemed like unreasonable tantrums to Albert, who found her utterly detestable. Monica, if you just carry the baby to term, I promise I won't mistreat you. But right now, you've crossed the line. Crossed the line? Monica had never intended to quietly stay within any boundaries. She pleaded. Albert, You know how severe my pregnancy symptoms have been all along. I'm about to give birth now. And you want to leave me at this moment? She struggled desperately to stop Albert from putting clothes into the suitcase. But the man was utterly irritated and shoved her aside. Don't block me. With that shove from him, Monica lost her balance and fell hard onto the ground. Ah! With her back against the hospital's white wall, Isabella sat on the bench, gazing at the distant mountains. A blonde-haired, blue-eyed woman was carefully helped to sit beside her by her husband. The man smiled politely at Isabella, then said to the woman, "I'm going to start the car. I'll be back soon." Isabella looked at herself curiously as the lady gently stroked her belly. Her tone resigned. "My belly's too big. I get tired after just a few steps," Isabella replied. "That's how it is when you're pregnant. You need to rest." Counting the days, Monica was due to give birth in about 2 months. Albert was about to become a father. He was so eager for Monica's child that he would surely shower both mother and baby with love. At that thought, Isabella felt a sudden ripple stir in her heart. She thought she would feel lost and sad. But in the end, she only felt an emptiness inside, no deep sorrow. The young man wearing frameless glasses stepped out of the hospital, glanced around anxiously for a moment, then hurried over to her side. "I couldn't find you just now. You really scared me." After saying goodbye to the woman beside her, Isabella got into the car with him and they drove off. "I won't get lost. Dr. Allen." Allen started the car and said, "Professor Calvin really is a world-class neurology expert. In such a short time, your vision has already recovered to what it was before." At the mention, Isabella's face immediately brightened with a radiant smile. "Yeah, so let's check out that new restaurant today." Allen curled a faint smile. "All right." Chapter 19. Monica fell hard, and on the way to the hospital, she was already leaving behind a large pool of blood. "Third uncle, am I going to die?" she sobbed. Even at a time like this, she didn't forget to find every way to hold on to Albert's heart. "Third uncle, I really love you. I just want to stay by your side, to take care of you and our child for the rest of our lives." Seeing the woman before him still yearning for his mercy in such a moment, Albert felt a flicker of emotion, mixed with a pang of guilt. "Monica, rest assured and bring our child into this world. I promise nothing you fear will happen. I will love our child, and I will take good care of you too." Monica's eyes flickered like a candle suddenly set ablaze. "Third uncle, you really won't send me away, will you? I just want to watch our child grow up with you." Albert took a deep breath and whispered an apology to the image of Isabella in his mind. "All right. We'll watch our child grow up together." Monica was pushed into the delivery room, and Albert waited anxiously for hours until he finally heard the cry of a newborn from inside. The nurse joyfully brought the newborn out for Albert to see. "Mr. Chan, congratulations. It's a boy." Albert Chan finally let out a sigh of relief. He held the baby symbolically but felt no connection between them. 10 years ago, he had endlessly fantasized about having a child with Isabella. But now that the child he longed for was here, Isabella was nowhere to be found, and Albert didn't know who to share the joy of becoming a father with. He placed the baby back into the nurse's arms. "Take good care of Monica. Tell her there's an emergency at the casino. I need to head back." Albert didn't even glance at Monica in the delivery room. He just went straight back to pack his bags and rush to the airport. After landing in Hong Kong, he headed straight to the hospital and, sure enough, found Isabella's discharge records. It was on the same day as Monica's, but Monica was in the morning, and Isabella was in the afternoon. The medical staff didn't know where Isabella had gone after leaving the hospital. Albert had no choice but to return to the villa at Victoria Peak. The servant was visibly surprised when he saw him. "Sir, you're back so early?" Monica still had almost 2 months until her due date. Albert wasn't in the mood for small talk. "Has the wife come back?" The servant was confused. "Didn't the wife go to Hawaii with you?" Albert choked. Annoyed, "I'm talking about Isabella." The servant's mouth twitched. Since Monica moved into the villa and took over the nest with Albert's silent approval, the servants shifted with the wind, and the title of wife naturally passed to Monica. "The wife hasn't come back since she last went to the hospital." Albert paced around the villa like a headless fly, searching for any sign of Isabella's presence. The painting in the bedroom was fresh and natural, but the wedding photos Isabella and I once took were nowhere to be found. "What about that photo?" the servant whispered. After it was taken down last time, Madam complained about a crack in the glass and had us throw it away. She threw away their wedding photos and left without taking a single thing. Albert's heart grew heavier with irritation. Right after, the call from the assistant felt like salt in the wound. Third uncle. Several regular clients haven't come recently. They said that although other dealers' skills are good, they still prefer Madam's style. Albert said angrily. Reserve Isabella's spot. If the other dealers can't make it, replace them. Do you really need to ask me about such a small thing? He threw his mobile phone aside, loosened his tie, and lay back on the sofa, gasping for breath. Everything was changing, only he seemed completely lost, unable to find his original path in life. Suddenly, the villa door clicked. It was being unlocked. It must be Isabella coming back. Albert jumped up from the sofa in surprise. Chapter 20. The servant hurried to the door to greet whoever it was. Wife. Seeing the person at the door, her words caught in her throat. Monica. Why are you back? Monica rushed back from Hawaii to Hong Kong without even completing her postpartum confinement, followed closely by the nanny carrying the baby. Albert, a trace of impatience flashed in his eyes. Why didn't you properly do your confinement in Hawaii and instead rushed back here? Monica biting her lip. Third uncle. You weren't here. I wasn't at ease during my confinement. Since you had to come back, I brought the baby to keep you company. It doesn't matter where we do the confinement. Albert, not in the mood to argue. He went off to the study by himself. The servant and the nanny hurried to settle Monica and the child. Miss Lynn, you gave birth so early, and the custom crib still smells. I'll go buy one for you now. Albert wasn't here, and Monica's temper flared immediately. What did you just call me? The servant whispered. Miss Lynn. Monica, already boiling with anger, immediately reached out and pushed her away. Are you out of your mind? How did you call me before? The nanny said fearfully. But it was Sir who told me to call you that. What? Monica was speechless. In just a few days, she had changed from wife back to Miss Lynn. So, who's the wife in the house now? Could it be Isabella? She stood in the living room, uncertain, then quietly moved to the door of Albert's study. Albert was on the phone. Check Isabella's credit card records. See what she's been spending on lately. He carefully discussed with the person on the other end how to find Isabella, as meticulously as if he were reviewing his own prenatal checkup report. Sure enough, it was still all about Isabella. Monica, in the midst of endless despair, a flicker of anger suddenly ignited. Albert, how could you change your heart so quickly? Once, for her sake, he established a foundation at her alma mater, bought cars and houses for her and her parents, and brought their family back into the upper echelons of society. Even her first time came only after his relentless pursuit, tenderly unfolding in the hotel's most luxurious suite. He even drove away the woman who had stood by him for 10 years, completely indifferent to the child growing inside her. But now he tells himself that fantasies are just that, mere illusions born of his own delusion. Monica finally snapped. She slammed open the study door. Albert, I came all this way holding our child to find you. How can you treat me like this? Seeing Monica's tear-streaked face, Albert hung up coldly. You eat well, live well, even gave birth in the best hospital. I've raised you from the ground to the sky. How have I wronged you? Monica shouted. You promised me you'd always keep me by your side. So what does it mean that you're seeing Isabella now? Albert pointed at her in empty air with his finger. You better know your place. If you can't keep your mouth shut, then keep the baby and leave. Monica's throat tightened as she stared at Sue Albert with a stiff, disbelieving expression. This was the first time Albert had spoken so plainly and clearly with her. What she had always feared most had finally happened. They were locked in a standoff when a sharp female voice broke the silence in the living room. Oh my grandson, let me see him right away. Albert's mother had arrived. Monica seized the chance like clutching a lifeline, rushing back to the living room and snatching the baby into her arms first. Seeing Monica with tears streaming down her face, Chan Mama looked puzzled. What's wrong? Did you have a fight? Monica sobbed. Third uncle doesn't want me or the baby anymore. Chan Mama was momentarily stunned, then masked it with a tender smile. Albert has that kind of temper. Don't take it personally. If there's anything wrong, just tell me, I'll sort it out for you. Chapter 21. Monica tearfully poured out how hard it was to give birth, and how tough it had been traveling from south to north with the baby. She cried from the heart, unaware that Chan Mama was silently judging her deep down. There's Nanny, first-class cabin, and on this whole trip, she doesn't even have to hold the child herself. So where exactly is she being wronged? But Chan Mama had no faults to find with her. Albert came back because of something at the hotel. Not because of that, Isabella. You must be tired. Rest for a bit first. The child's with me. I'll talk to Albert for you later. Seeing her future mother-in-law standing on her side, Monica felt somewhat relieved. She handed the child to Chan Mama, who immediately took the child to find Albert. Don't, Monica. You can't just do nothing. At least stabilize her first. Keep the baby. As for Isabella, Chan Mama thought Isabella and her son were destined to be at odds. Isabella had been by Albert's side all these years but couldn't have a child, forcing her son to find a wife from a modest family to bear his heir. Now that Isabella is gone, and Albert already has a son, what respectable lady would marry a man like that? In the end, it's better to have Isabella come back and be a stepmother to the child. At least she can't have her own, but she can care for the one they have. But Chan Mama didn't expect that her words would be overheard right outside the study door by Monica. Monica furiously lunged forward, trying to wrest the child from Chan Mama. You really are all snakes and rats in the same den. Give me back my son. Chan Mama cursed and grumbled as the servant and nanny pulled her away. Giving birth to my son's child is your honor. This child belongs to our Chan family. What does it have to do with you? Get lost. The nanny and servant dragged the devastated Monica out of the villa. Inside and outside the door, chaos reigned with chickens flying and dogs running wild. Albert was aching with a headache. The child was carried upstairs by the nanny, while he sat alone in the small bedroom where Isabella had last lived, his mind in complete turmoil. He didn't know what was wrong with him. He couldn't bring himself to look at his newborn son, nor did he want to sort out matters at the hotel. His mind kept replaying Isabella's pale face lying on the hospital bed. Why didn't she wake up then? If she had woken a moment earlier and talked things through with him, maybe he wouldn't have gone to Hawaii to accompany Monica during her delivery, and they might have had a chance to make things right again. Albert lay exhausted on the bed, breathing in the lingering fragrance Isabella had left behind, slipping into a deep sleep. This is lavender aromatherapy. It helps with sleep. Isabella opened the gift box, a faint smile flickering across her pretty face. I love the scent. Alan loved seeing the life slowly blooming back in Isabella. Once all the dishes were served, he carefully placed the knife and fork to Isabella's left. Though Isabella's vision had recovered, her right hand was severely injured and was still undergoing rehabilitation. She had already started learning to use her left hand to handle the little things in life. Isabella awkwardly tried to spear the salad on her plate with a fork, while Alan neither mocked nor hurried her, only occasionally rearranging the food on her plate to make it easier for her to eat. Tasting her favorite dishes, Isabella felt quite uplifted. The food review I wrote a few days ago was picked up by the magazine office, and now their editor-in-chief has invited me to write a food column. Leaving Albert and the underground casino behind, she felt it was time to start a different kind of life. She wanted to live under the sun. Isn't it sad? Only love and good food are worth cherishing? So she started learning to become a foodie. Alan nodded in agreement. That's great. You need to stay to treat your hand injury anyway, so why not take the chance to work as a food editor and lift your spirits? Isabella tilted her head and asked, Your advanced training here lasts a year, right? Alan nodded blankly. Yeah. Isabella thought for a moment, then playfully stretched the tone. All right then, I'll sign a 1-year contract with them. Alan seemed a little slow to react. After a moment, a faint blush spread across his cheeks. Could I really have a chance? He didn't hide the brilliant, passionate look in his eyes, which made Isabella flush slightly. She lowered her head and slipped a sausage into her mouth, trying to hide it but only drawing more attention. Hurry up and eat. I want to try the coffee from that street later. Alan smiled softly and nodded gently. All right. I'll go with you. Chapter 22. After 2 slaps from Chan Mama, Monica finally went back to her old, submissive self. Just when she thought yielding would bring the long-awaited peace, the assistant's call shattered her final hope. Third uncle, we've found where the madam is. He sent Albert a food review article, signed unmistakably by Isabella. This article is about a restaurant in Berlin. The madam should be in Germany now. A rare flicker of joy flashed through Albert's heart. Book the flight. I'm going to Germany right now. He owed Isabella an apology, and owed her the rest of his life. Albert was just about to leave, suitcase in hand, when his mother stormed in, furious. Monica, you get out here right now. Albert rubbed his forehead in pain. Mom, I'm going abroad. Can we talk about this later if something comes up? But Chan Mama stopped him firmly. You can't leave. What happened today has to be dealt with immediately. She held up several medical reports, her eyes practically blazing with fury. Your son, the grandson I've longed for all this time, isn't even of our Chan family bloodline? That Monica despicable woman dared to use someone else's child to confuse the Chan family lineage. What? Albert snatched the report, his mind going completely blank. Coming down the stairs, Monica heard everything and collapsed helplessly on the steps. Albert flipped through the stack of reports in his hand, his face growing grimmer by the minute. The report not only said that Monica's child was not his. What shocked him most was the doctor saying his sperm motility was extremely low, making it very difficult for a woman to conceive. It turned out that Isabella had been unable to keep a pregnancy all these years not because of her body, but because of his own problem. This sudden blow left Albert dizzy and disoriented. Monica bowed her head, cautiously inching closer to explain. Third uncle, it's not like that. There must be something wrong with this report. I can explain. Chan Mama rushed over, grabbed her hair, and slapped her twice. You filthy woman. Luckily I was careful enough to have a paternity test done, or you would have fooled me. How dare you cheat on my son, and use a bastard born from you and some other dog to pretend to be a child of the Chan family. Scheming for our Chan family's fortune. Even if I don't kill you today, I'll make sure you end up in jail. Monica was beaten until she cried out in pain. Third uncle, I promise I'll have another son for you someday. Albert stared at her with a dark, brooding expression. Who was that man? Monica knelt, sobbing. It was David. One time at work, someone forced me to drink 2 glasses. After I got off, he happened to run into me and took me away. Since he was your friend, I let my guard down. After that, with alcohol dulling their senses, it was a mix of resistance and consent. Albert was so angry his forehead flushed bright red. David was his closest brother, the one who had congratulated himself on enjoying the blessings of a harmonious family, yet warned himself to be fair and impartial. No wonder he told me to be fair, it was because he feared I would mistreat his son. Albert kicked Monica brutally. Monica was kicked flying and lay sprawled for a long while without moving. Albert tugged at his tie, his face as cold as frost. Take that bastard to the orphanage. Monica crawled over, sobbing, and clung to his leg. Third uncle, I know I was wrong. Please don't send this child too far away, okay? Albert grabbed his suitcase and left without looking back, issuing orders as he went. Lock her down in the basement for me. The sky over Berlin was as blue as a jewel. After the airplane landed, Albert headed straight to the magazine office where Isabella had published her article. It was lunchtime, and the Italian restaurant downstairs from the magazine office was buzzing with activity. Albert suddenly stopped in his tracks, pausing at the roadside opposite the restaurant. He saw Isabella. Isabella's Zhejiang was completely lost in the moment, savoring the plate of spaghetti before him, his mouth still babbling non-stop. Albert could almost picture how she critiqued the colors, aromas, and flavors of the dish in front of her. Just then, a slender, knuckled hand appeared awkwardly in front of Isabella. The hand held a tissue, gently wiping the sauce from the corner of Isabella's mouth. Albert then noticed a young man sitting across from Isabella. That man looked vaguely familiar. Chapter 23. The young man was sharp and soon noticed Albert's presence. Alan looked away gently and said, "A local milk tea shop just opened nearby. Want some? I'll go grab it for you." Isabella, eating barbecue, nodded happily. "Sure. I want taro boba." Alan smiled as he stood, and before leaving, affectionately ruffled Isabella's fluffy hair. After stepping outside, he seemed to casually pass by Albert's side. "Let's go talk over there." Albert had planned to take this chance to find Isabella, but seeing her happily eating, he couldn't bring himself to disturb her meal. 2 men stood silently at the street corner. Albert asked in a low voice, "Have I seen you somewhere before?" Alan shrugged. You once accompanied Miss Lynn to a hospital visit. I was the emergency doctor there at the time. Albert suddenly recalled, after he forced Isabella to have an abortion. He seemed to have passed by this doctor outside Isabella's hospital ward. Why are you following Isabella? He said resentfully. Alan grinned uncontrollably. I came here for advanced training and to accompany my girlfriend during her recovery. Does third uncle have to boss me around about that? Your girlfriend? Albert looked at the Italian restaurant in disbelief. You said Isabella? No way. She's my woman. Alan snorted. Third uncle. Let me remind you, you paraded another woman around. Abandoned Isabella, who stood by you for years, at the scene of a car accident, and even forced her to abort the last child you two had together. To me, this isn't ingratitude. It's something worse than bestiality. By the end, his mocking, irreverent expression suddenly turned serious. Albert, if you still consider yourself a man, stay away from Isabella. Albert narrowed his eyes, staring down the young man who was confronting him head-on. I've been with her for 10 years. What happens between us is none of some outsider's business. He started walking toward the Italian restaurant, and just as Alan was about to stop him, he suddenly heard a woman's shocked voice. Albert, what are you doing here? Isabella widened her eyes, staring at Albert as he appeared before her. Albert didn't stay with Monica through her pregnancy but came to Germany? Could it be he was looking for his own? At the thought of this possibility, Isabella couldn't help but take a step back. Alan saw Isabella's unease and quickly reached out to put his arm around her shoulders. Are you okay? Let's go back and eat. Or if you don't have work this afternoon, I'll go home with you, all right? Isabella nodded dazedly, pulling her gaze away from Albert. All right, let's go home. Albert dropped his suitcase and hurried forward to grab Isabella. Isabella, it's my fault. Everything before was my mistake. Monica lied to me. She's carrying someone else's child. I've already gotten rid of both of them, and my mother won't stand in our way anymore. From now on, it's just the two of us. We can start over. Albert stammered, pouring out his heart. Isabella, though surprised by his ordeal, her face remained calm and unreadable. After a moment, she spoke calmly, as if to a stranger. What does this have to do with me? Albert stood rooted to the spot, mouth agape, utterly dumbfounded. How could it not matter? Every obstacle between Isabella and him had disappeared. They could truly start anew. Albert lowered all his defenses, almost begging, Isabella, I know I'm wrong. Everyone makes mistakes. You have to give me a chance to make things right. We have 10 years of feelings, and the casino, that's our shared blood, sweat, and tears. Isabella leaned closer to Alan, calm and composed. The past is the past. I have the courage and resolve to start over. She tugged Alan, ready to leave, but Albert stubbornly grabbed her sleeve. Isabella, don't be like this. I know you were just angry at me for a moment. I know you hate Monica. Once we return home, I'll hand her over to you. Deal with her however you want. Isabella finally stopped, mercifully giving Albert a confused look. Albert, do you really think she's the one I hate? Chapter 2-4. Monica is indeed ignorant, foolish, and vain, but without your enabling, would she have hurt me again and again? The one I've always hated was never her, it was you. You buried a decade of friendship with your own hands, blindly trusting others, and sent our last child to the grave. Isabella couldn't bear to carry such a stain on herself and the child, nor could she forgive Albert. You hate me? Albert stood there, dumbfounded and lost, sensing Isabella's escalating emotions. Alan quietly stroked her back. Isabella seemed to come back to her senses, lowering her voice. Later, whenever I thought of you, I just felt disgusted, to the point that I didn't even bother hating you anymore. Isabella's words felt like arrows, constantly piercing Albert's heart. Isabella, don't be like this. I know you're just speaking in anger, he pleaded. Our villa has already been restored to how it was. I even had the flowers and plants you loved replanted. And your photos with me, I have digital copies on the computer. So we can print another one. Realizing that talking so much was like casting pearls before swine, Isabella finally lost her patience. She suddenly let a faint smile touch her lips, her eyes and brows as gentle as they had been back then. She whispered, whatever I ask, you'll say yes? Albert's eyes brightened as he nodded without hesitation. Yes. Alan wrapped his arm around Isabella's hand, tightening his grip instinctively, his heart pounding. Isabella said coldly, "Then I want you to stay far away from me, never to show up in front of me again." Albert felt as if pierced by a sharp sword, his chest hollow and empty. Alan led Isabella away, leaving Albert alone, a lonely figure standing on a foreign street. He already knows he was wrong. Isabella. So why won't she forgive him? 10 years of love, are they really so insignificant to her? Albert refused to accept it. He stayed in this city, waiting every day along Isabella's commute. He often saw Isabella carrying a big bag, wearing a trench coat over a turtleneck, joyfully crossing the street toward the magazine office. At first, Isabella didn't even know Albert existed, until one day, buying coffee downstairs, she casually glanced back and caught Albert's deep gaze. In that moment, Isabella's hair stood on end, like prey caught in the eyes of a fierce beast. She would never forget Albert slapping her, nor the cold touch of the surgical knife slicing open her abdomen. Albert clearly caught Isabella's gaze. His footsteps moved unconsciously, as if he wanted to walk over to Isabella, from hundreds of meters away. Isabella looked like a frightened rabbit, refusing even her coffee, and turned to flee into the magazine office. Albert was filled with a deep melancholy. Isabella's unusual behavior finally caught the editor-in-chief's attention. Editor-in-chief Sophia was a tall, slender Nordic woman with neat, short hair, speaking and acting with decisive authority. "Isa, what's been going on with you lately? You were so happy when you first arrived. Is it the recent work troubles? If you run into problems you can't handle, make sure you tell us." Isabella felt the rare kindness of a kindred spirit and reluctantly shared the troubles and worries she'd been facing lately. The editor-in-chief was a single mother raising 2 kids, deeply familiar with the cold and warmth of marriage, and she immediately flew into a rage when she heard this. How dare someone harass my employee? The next day, the editor-in-chief went to buy coffee with Isabella, and sure enough, they spotted Albert hiding on a street corner. Without saying a word, the editor-in-chief strode over to Albert, pointed at his nose, and snapped, "Here, stalking and harassing women is a crime. Consider this a warning. Next time I see you, I'll call the police on the spot." Albert had no intention of arguing with the woman before him. "That's between Isabella and me. None of your business." The editor-in-chief sneered. "She's been hurt badly because of you. You can't make up for it. Yet you keep hanging around her, stirring up those wounds and dragging her back into those dark, hopeless days. You're not human, you're practically a demon." Albert gritted his teeth, stubbornly refusing to nod. "We once loved each other deeply and went through so much together. I just lost my way for a moment. She must still have feelings for me. We can go back to how we were. You have no right to tear us apart." The editor-in-chief didn't waste any words with him and immediately called the police upon returning to the magazine office. The police reviewed nearby surveillance footage and indeed found Albert following Isabella closely. Without hesitation, they arrested him on the spot. Chapter 2-5. A week later, Chan Mama traveled thousands of miles to this country and, with the help of a lawyer, finally saw her son, scruffy and sunken-cheeked. After uncovering the whole story, Chan Mama blew up with curses at the police station. "Isabella's a curse. After all these years she hasn't given you a son, and she lets that wretched Monica into your life. She's a mother who can't lay an egg, and now she has the nerve to be picky with you. She honestly doesn't know her place." Albert buried his head in his arms, his eyes heavy with a remorse no one else could see. "Mom, please stop." Chan Mama spoke with the lawyer, completely ignoring her son's plea. "Lawyer, if Isabella writes a letter of forgiveness for my son, will my son be off the hook?" The lawyer nodded. "That depends on whether the other party is willing." Albert hadn't slept well in a long time. Just thinking about having killed what might have been the only child he'd ever have filled him with overwhelming guilt. His eyes were bloodshot. Hearing his mother chattering nonstop beside him, he finally lost control and slammed his fist on the table. "Mom, can you stop making a fuss? I told you not to bother Isabella anymore. Don't you get it? If you hadn't opposed us back then, Isabella and I could still be together now. Do you know Isabella is already carrying my child? But because of Monica, she never told me about the pregnancy. The reason I went to find Monica is because you kept forcing me to give up on Isabella. forcing me to have a child. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have ended up like this. You're the real devil. Seeing his son hysterical, Chan Mama froze on the spot, while an agitated Albert was taken back into custody by the police. After leaving the police station, Chan Mama wiped away her tears and kept discussing with the lawyer about going to find Isabella. But Isabella seemed to have vanished without a trace. The magazine office was very kind-hearted. Because of this, they gave Isabella time off. Isabella also filed for a protection order, so Chan Mama had no way of finding out where Isabella was. About a month later, the relentless Chan Mama finally caught Isabella outside the magazine office, where she had come briefly to deliver a manuscript. Caught by this worn-aged woman right in front of her, Isabella could hardly believe she was the same Chan Mama who once pointed at her nose, scolding her fiercely for being unable to have children. Chan Mama's index finger, sharp and claw-like, dug into Isabella's arm. Isabella, I was wrong. My son knows he was wrong too. Please forgive him. Whatever money you want, I'll give it to you. And I've kicked that bitch Monica and her child out. From now on, I won't interfere in anything between you and Albert again. The three of us will go back to our country and live in peace. All right? Isabella was stunned for a moment, then slowly came back to her senses. He has nothing to do with me anymore. Chan Mama, please let go. Chan Mama persistently held on to him, refusing to let go. Isabella, I'll agree to anything you want, even if it means giving you half the shares of the casino. The tugging and pulling at the door finally caught the security staff's attention. They came over to pull Chan Mama away while calling the police. As a result, the mother and son were both detained one after another for harassing Isabella. The chaos around this incident finally began to subside. Isabella was busy preparing topics for the next quarter and didn't think much of the matter until the editor-in-chief shared the follow-up story with her. I heard Albert and his mother were both released after spending a lot of money. Although they returned to the country, they're restricted from entering again. You can rest assured and keep living here. Chapter 26. Albert, who returned to the country, didn't start the quiet life that Chan Mama had hoped for. Back then, to save him and his mother, the family's properties were almost all sold off, including the villa where he and Isabella used to live, which got auctioned. Albert had no choice but to move with his mother into a small apartment. The other shareholders of the casino knew he was struggling with cash flow. They kicked him when he was down, seizing the chance to buy his shares at a low price and sidelined him in management. Without Isabella holding the fort, the casino's dealers all defected, and Albert's orders often became meaningless. Both his life and work left him overwhelmed. He was irritable, sleepless, and even started drinking heavily. Chan Mama couldn't help with anything. Every day, she either nagged in his ear or cursed Isabella and Monica to a bad end. That day outside the casino, Albert ran into Monica, whom he hadn't seen in ages. He had almost forgotten about this woman. Before leaving for Germany, he had someone lock Monica in the basement. When he returned, he learned that Monica had taken advantage of the servant delivering her meal being off guard, grabbed the tray, knocked the servant down, and escaped. The Monica before him had wild hair, hollow cheeks, and lips painted bright red. Like a ghost drained of all life, she grabbed Albert, her voice full of pathetic pleading. "Third uncle, I know I was wrong. I won't go looking for that child anymore. Please forgive me, okay? From now on, I'll definitely have another child with you. If one day Isabella comes back, I'll quietly leave and won't bother you anymore." She thought Albert was angry with her because she insisted on finding the child she'd have with another man. Albert coldly pushed her away, not even giving her a second glance. "Get lost. Don't let me see you again," Monica cried, clutching on and refusing to let go. "Third uncle, you promised me a house and some savings." Knowing their daughter had crossed Albert, her parents sold the house he had given them and took the money, running far away. "Monica, when I got home, there wasn't a single sign of my parents, let alone anyone helping with the confinement." Hearing this, Albert was furious, his gaze cold as a dagger. He reached out and grabbed Monica by the neck. "The kid's not mine, and yet you dare want my house and money? You've got some nerve. When you lied and framed Isabella in front of me back then, did you ever think that your fate might one day be even worse than hers?" Monica was strangled by him, her face turning blue-purple. Unable to utter a word, Albert beckoned a security guard and had Monica thrown out. Chapter 27. The day's business was just as frustrating as ever. After work, thinking about his nagging mother at home and the cold stove, Albert rubbed his forehead and kept putting off leaving the office until deep into the night. When he arrived at the underground parking lot and was about to unlock his car door, a disheveled figure suddenly appeared in the shadows. The person lunged at him, as if to embrace him, one hand gripping his waist tightly, while the other shoved a sharp knife into his abdomen, twisting it with a reverse twist. Albert let out a painful cry and slowly slumped against the car, his vision blurred, flashing black and white. He couldn't make out any figures but caught a familiar scent. It was Monica's signature jasmine perfume. Monica watched Albert fall at her feet and sneered bitterly. "Albert, here's a lesson for you. Being stingy and sleeping with women for free will bring divine punishment. See? Your reckoning has come." Hearing footsteps nearby, Monica crouched low and slipped between the rows of cars. Fleeing, the security guard quickly spotted Albert lying on the ground. "Ah, someone's been murdered. Call the police. Quick." The nearby surveillance was comprehensive. Monica was soon taken back to the police station. Before long, she inevitably ended up in prison, living a life where she didn't have to care for a child but still had meals to eat. When people leave, the warmth fades. Albert's funeral was cold and quiet, the only liveliness coming from Chan Mama completely losing her mind at her son's funeral. She snatched a girl's doll and called it her grandson, causing the little girl to cry and scream loudly. Those around her only heard her whisper, "Sorry, if I had known, I wouldn't have started all this in the first place." No one really knows who this proud old wife, who's carried arrogance all her life, was apologizing to. A year later, Isabella's contract expired, Alan's internship ended, and the two returned to the mainland hand in hand. When they heard what happened at Albert's family, Isabella and Alan exchanged stunned glances, completely dumbfounded. Before returning home, Alan still worried that if he and Isabella just went back like that, Albert might cling to Isabella relentlessly, making their lives unbearably complicated again. Who would have thought retribution would come so fast? Monica's single knife helped them resolve all their troubles. Alan held Isabella close, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "Do you want to stay here, or shall we settle abroad?" Isabella, overwhelmed with emotion, returned a kiss to the corner of Alan's mouth. "Anywhere is fine, as long as you're with me." Behind Alan's gentle gaze was a sky clear and blue, washed clean. "Tomorrow, and every day after, will be good weather."